Miss my mouth. I can't even drink. All right, we're gonna let people come on into the room. See if we get a decent turnout tonight. Chop it up. A couple topics we can hit on. See who comes on in here. Hope everybody is having a good night. That all of you are doing well. Tonight I am drinking Peach Vibe Celsius. Stuff is good. I don't think it has any sugar. It says it doesn't anyway. I'm sure there's some type of sugar in here. Yeah, 0 sugar. Matthew West, how are you, my man? Good to see you. Yeah, this stuff has been pretty good. I'm trying to wean myself off of Red Bull. I have a problem, man. I'm like all messed up. Between coffee and Red Bull, I don't drink sodas, so that's a good thing. But yeah. Trying to be health conscious and get into better shape has just been very, very difficult. I am hopeful that when I weigh in on Sunday, I try to weigh in every Sunday. I'm really hopeful that I'm going to be 20 pounds down. I think that when I weighed in last Sunday, I was at 17 pounds. Since July 20th, I think is when I started. July 19th is when I started my fitness journey. So I was down 17 pounds. I'm hopeful that when I weigh in this weekend, that I will be down officially 20 pounds. I need that win. I need to stack up these W's so I can stay focused on my goals. Yesterday, I was at jiu-jitsu, and Professor Matt was like taking us through his UFC warm-up, like the kind of warm-up that he wants us to do if we compete. It was the hardest thing that I've ever done. I've told you guys before, I didn't wrestle when I was in high school. We didn't have wrestling. So to do like a full-fledged, what I assume is a full-fledged wrestling warm-up, that shit was killer. And then we had 2 matches after that, and I think I tweaked my knee. I don't know if I sprained it or if I tore a ligament or something, but my knee is jacked up. So it's been a rough couple of days. Matthew says, I tried Red Bull, but was not a big fan of it. Man, I was drinking like, probably at my worst this year, I was drinking like 4 Red Bulls a day. I don't know how, I don't think you're supposed to have more than 1. I don't think you're supposed to have more than 1. But I was drinking like 4 of them. When I used to work at the prison, this was like a decade ago when I worked at the prison, I used to drink energy drinks all day. Like I would drink Rockstar. You know, I did the overnight shift. I did the midnight to 7 shift, midnight to 8. I would drink like 12 of those things, man. It's surprising I didn't have a heart attack. It was crazy. I don't think they're good for you. More than likely, this Celsius is not good for me either, so I probably shouldn't be drinking this. I should be drinking water. T says, I had to swap to sparkling water. I was going too hard on the energy drinks. Yeah, you know, I told you guys last week, I am a recovering alcoholic. I am a functioning, recovering alcoholic. That means that when I was really deep into drinking liquor, which was whiskey and beer, I had to try and like trick myself to get off of it because I have such an addictive personality. So what I did was I stopped drinking whiskey and I just started drinking cider. And then I got to where I like weaned myself down to White Claws. And once I was drinking White Claws, then it was easy to just drink sparkling water. So if I have a taste or a desire to drink a beer, since I kind of trained myself to drink White Claw, now I can drink a sparkling water and it completely takes the desire for alcohol out. And then these Celsius have like replaced the Red Bull, but I gotta quit drinking these. I don't think that this is good for you. I, you know, I just need to stick to like organic stuff like tea and coffee and water, you know, but I'm trying. All right, let's see if we got any questions. Carrot says, what's good? Everything is good, bro. Assuming you're a bro. Coal Soft Gray. Hey, listening while on patrol. Good to see you live. Yeah, glad to be live, man. I love these live streams, guys. We did like, I think 3 of them last week. Last week, I was working a strike. So the detail that I was on, I was working a strike. It was so toxic. The people were so nasty, so negative, so mean. And at the end of the day, when I finished my shift, I would come out and I would do my live stream with you guys. And I just love doing question and answers. I love talking to you guys. I love having this back and forth, this community. So, hey, if you're here, if we got 3 people, 4 people, whoever's here, throw me some questions. You can ask me questions about the private security industry. You can ask me questions about personal life. You can ask me anything. Like, let's chop it up. I really enjoy talking to you guys. This is like therapy to me. So there you go. And Cole Soft, man, I'm glad that you're enjoying it, man. I'm glad you're here. So Carrot says, any tips on working as a bouncer from back in the day? Oh my God. I've told you guys like all my good bouncer stories, right? I told you about the Nazi stripper. That's a good story. When I was bouncing, man, oh man, woo, memory lane. So here's the crazy thing about when I was a bouncer. I got married at 19 years old. I got married at 19 years old. I had my first kid at 20, right? I was married for 10 years. So, you know, from the time that I was 18 to like 29, I was married. I had, you know, we had 4 kids. We lived the married lifestyle. I used to go play golf on Sunday. And then I get divorced right as I'm turning 30. And I moved to the area right outside of Penn State University. And so my first job after getting divorced from being married for 10 years and playing, you know, Mr. Mom and living a very square lifestyle, my first job was working at a bouncer at a college nightclub. So my job is to work the door to let all of these college girls in. You know what I mean? Pennsylvania, it's like 4 below in the winter. It's snowing like crazy. It's sleeting. It's raining. And all of these sorority girls and college girls are wanting to get into the nice, warm nightclub. And your boy is 29, 30 years old. And it sounds crazy. I don't say any of this to brag. I don't. I want to be very clear. I don't say any of this to brag. I'm just telling you what the environment was like. I was 29 years old. I'm in a predominantly white area. I'm basically one of the only black people there aside from the athletes, right? And I got a lot of attention. It was crazy. It was crazy, you know? And I made friends with all of these younger guys who were in college. Like, I was living a college lifestyle at the age of 29. Matter of fact, the guy that I worked for, his family owned everything in this one little area of Pennsylvania. I mean, they were like a very prominent family. Long story short, they owned a apartment complex that they rented out as a dormitory for the college. So a lot of the people that came to the nightclub, because we were one of like only, you know, 5 or 6 nightclubs, those people lived in this dorm. And I had an apartment in this dorm with all of these college kids. So I'm like coming out of a 10-year marriage, having 4 young children, and now I'm living this lifestyle where I'm basically back in college. It was crazy. So the question about thoughts about being a bouncer, man, it was a crazy time. I've always been a very calm and collected person. I've always been very approachable. I never had problems with people when I was bouncing. I didn't get aggressive with people, but I've said this before. I've always been big. I think that being big and being cordial, it cuts a lot of the bullshit. What would be two things that I could say that I learned from bouncing? How to talk to people. Definitely how to talk to people. Being able to read people. I would say one thing that I really learned by being a bouncer was you spend so much time in the background just watching, you observe people. And when you observe people from a distance and you don't necessarily interact with them, you see people's true self. When people don't know that they're being watched, when people don't know that someone is observing them, they let their guard down. You see them, you hear conversations close to you that you're not a part of. I really learned a lot about being able to watch people, read their body language. I learned a lot about that. Yeah, that was a great experience. Woo, man, the memories. Now, the bouncing at the college nightclub was great. Working as the DJ was way better. So I started as a bouncer. So 2010-ish is when I started working as a bouncer. By 2011, I was like, I wanted to be the DJ because the DJ was showing up at 9 o'clock, getting out of there at 2 o'clock. He wasn't getting into fights with football players. You know what I mean? Like all the girls were throwing themselves at him. Like, how do I do that? So I became the DJ. I literally studied, took classes, went to seminars, and became a DJ, and I fucking killed it for 5 years. I worked every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for 5 years. Killed it. Had a great time. Lots of stories. All right, let's see what else we got. Matthew West says, question, I was working at a site and was approached by a Peace Health security manager, and he was telling me all this awesome stuff about the job, and it sounds promising, but not sure about it. Any advice? I don't know what Peace Health security is. Is that like a hospital or something? Let me know what that is, Matthew. I don't know what that job is. Give me a little bit more context. Aaron Gomez says, is the military good? Absolutely. I am a huge fan of the military. Just depends on what you're going into, what your MOS would be. But I think it's a great idea. Cash says, I'm trying to become a security guard. Do it, bro. El Chapo, are you married? I am married, yes. And, hey, I want you guys to know this. If I ever, look, I'm an open book. If I ever tell you guys stories about my past, I have the craziest stories. I have the craziest stories because I've lived a crazy life. When you live a crazy life, you get crazy stories. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want you guys to know that everything that I say on here, my wife already knows. I don't have any secrets from my wife. She knows all the crazy shit that I did. She knows all the bad choices that I made. She knows all of the mistakes that I made. We're very open. We're very honest. So if I ever share anything with you guys, even if it seems like a really crazy, wild, overly explicit story, she's already heard it. And we laugh about that shit. Cole Soft Gray, what is your opinion on security carrying tasers like the X26 or the X2? I actually carry the X26. I'm a huge fan of tasers. You just need to be trained in it. The taser is not as easy to operate as people think it is. There's a learning curve to utilizing the taser. There's certain things that you have to be aware of, specifically knowing what type of OC spray you or your partners have. If you're not using Saber, most other blends of OC spray can actually catch fire. If you were to utilize the OC spray and then go up on the continuum and then use a taser, you can catch somebody on fire. There's videos of people literally bursting into flames because they got pepper sprayed and then somebody hit them with a taser. You have to also understand, you know, the amount of volts that it puts out. You have to know the angle of the second barb that comes out. There's a lot of things that you have to know about with tasers. It's not as easy as it looks as just like point and click, because you have to get a certain spread, you have to hit a certain area of the body, you have to think about the muscular structure of the person. Are they muscular? Are they really fat? Like, is it going to have the right effect on this person based on how their body makeup is? There's a lot that goes into it. And that's why you have to be trained and you have to be certified in order to really utilize that taser in a proper fashion. If you're just purchasing it, which anybody can purchase one, right? But you're not taking the classes, you're not doing yearly or bi-yearly refreshers, there's a lot of information that you need to know about. And if you use one and you end up in court and they start asking you some of these questions and you can't answer it, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. So I'm a huge fan of them, so long as you're trained and you're certified on it. Terry, should I, as security, make an arrest based on third-party witness? Absolutely not. No. No. Simple answer, no. When you're working in security, your authority is only for crimes that are committed in your presence. Now, that being said, I will give you a little caveat here. Crimes that are committed in your presence. So if you're working at an apartment complex and you're on patrol and you hear a female and a male arguing, you don't see them, but you hear it. It's upstairs. And you hear the guy go, "Fuck you, bitch." And she's like, "Fuck you." And they're going back and forth. And then you hear the furniture moving. You hear this like loud pop and bang. And she screams. And she runs out of the house and she's holding her face and she's bleeding. And the guy comes out, he doesn't have his shirt on and he's screaming and he's pointing at her. That is in your presence. You can articulate, if that guy were to come out of the house and run down the stairs and you were then to detain him and make that arrest, you could articulate that that was in your presence because you heard it. You heard it, you saw it, there was a inference of what happened. You could articulate something like that. So there is a little caveat of you being able to make that detainment or that arrest as long as you can articulate it under those circumstances. But for the most part, third party information or something that you don't see, I would not touch it with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, Terry says let police deal with it. Yeah, so who was this? T says you're going to be cooked if you arrest somebody as security. That's not true. Guys, there's so many misconceptions about private security. The view that people have of private security is based off of the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s model. That's not the entirety of security. I don't understand why people have, I mean, I do. People have this view of private security and it's not legit. Private security is very, very vast in terms of what we do, what we're able to do, what we're legally authorized to do, right? The location where I'm at, I've been here for over 4 years. I've probably made 5 arrests. But the people that are in loss prevention, they make arrests all the time. There's no reality that security can't touch you, security can't make an arrest. Absolutely you can. The reason why most people think that is because based on the contract, the way that it's written, they don't want security to do certain things. But if you're working in a capacity where your job is to respond to certain things, or you're doing loss prevention or why can't I not talk tonight? Theft prevention, there are times where you're going to have to make an arrest. You absolutely can put your hands on people. You absolutely can detain people. You absolutely can arrest people. It just has to be a part of the contract. It has to be articulated in the post orders, and you have to be justified. But guess what? If you're a cop, you got to be justified in that shit as well. There's no difference. Just because we're working private security doesn't mean that we're somehow beholden to some different standard. Anything that we do, be it go hands-on, all the way up to shoot somebody in the face. And I'm not advocating that we ever shoot somebody in the face. But everything up to even that, we have the ability and the authority to do that. You just have to be able to articulate it, and it has to be legally justified. But everything that a police officer does has to be legally justified. Now, we can argue whether or not in reality that's how it ends up. We could have that conversation. But for all intents and purposes, anything that a police officer does should also and needs to also be legally justified. So get this out of your mind that security can't do this and security can't do that. That's wrong. Yeah, my man Colesoft here says, not necessarily. I've conducted dozens of arrests in California as armed security. I've always been able to... I didn't read this before I said what I just said, but you and I are on the same page, right? I've always been able to articulate the arrest and never had any issues with law enforcement or my company. Thank you. I didn't read that when I said what I just said. We just said the same thing. Somebody says, needless to say, he wasn't clapping cheeks. I know you're not talking about me, man. Bro, I've clapped enough cheeks for everybody on this thread. All right? Trust me. Just Latour, have you ever been scared? Absolutely. Somebody asked me this question the other day. I said, yeah, hang on. Guys, I'm scared all the time. I'm not scared in the sense that like I'm fearful that someone is going to do something to me. I'm not really ever scared of that. I've said this last stream and I'll say it again. I'm scared of the consequences because I know that no matter what private security does, we're going to be deemed to have been wrong 9 times out of 10. I also work in Portland. The demographic of people that I deal with are drug addicts, people suffering from mental illness, and homeless people. A lot of times, those 3 groups are encapsulated in one person. So I'm dealing with a homeless, drug addicted, mentally ill person. In Portland, Oregon, that demographic is a, what's the word that I'm looking for? They are a protected class. The city, the state, the nonprofits, the county, they make all of their money off of the homeless industrial complex. There's no accountability for the homeless community. There's no accountability for drug addicts. There's no accountability for criminals. But they will throw the book at private security guards. So my fear is always that if I have to do something, even if I can articulate it, am I going to find myself on the wrong end of the law in terms of how people view that demographic that I would have to be involved in? I don't really get scared of people. I don't get scared to get into a fight. I don't get scared of any of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I don't really get into that kind of shit either. Dilbert says he wants to fight me. Dilbert, you don't want to fight me, bro. Trust me. Henry Ross, why do other sites still policy of proceed when elements of people are more violent and reckless? I'm having to decipher what you wrote. Why do other sites still policy of proceed when elements of people are, I don't, okay. Rewrite that. I don't know what you're talking about. Carrot says, what do security employers look for when applying to a security job? Most companies just put a mirror under your nose and see if it fogs up. Low level, entry level, base level private security where you're just watching a doorknob, you're shaking door handles, you're filling out one of those little DAR reports that you get for Allied Universal. They're not looking for much. They're looking for you to want to work and for you to be available. If you're wanting to work for a company that pays $25 to $45 an hour, you're going to have to bring something else to the table. So Companies that are paying between $25 and $45 an hour, generally you need to have law enforcement background, you need to have military background, corrections officer experience. If you don't have that, what are your skills? Are you a really good communicator? Can you communicate verbally? Can you communicate in written form? Are you tech savvy? Are you able to demonstrate that you understand the principles of de-escalation? You have to bring something to the table. You know, if you're a hard worker and you're focused and you're coachable and you're trainable and you're reliable, that's enough to get you in the door for a company that pays over $20 an hour. The issue is that as you go up that scale, and guys, you can make anywhere from 28 to 45, sometimes $50 an hour working in security here in Portland. What separates you from the run-of-the-mill security guard is going to be what puts you in a position to get those higher paying jobs. And you want those higher paying jobs. You don't want to work security and get paid so little. Ghost stories. I have one kind of pseudo ghost story. I worked for Allied Barton. This was probably in 2013. It was before they merged. And they had us do a week-long detail at a hospital in Pennsylvania. The hospital had gone bankrupt. It was a private hospital. It had gone bankrupt and they were selling it to some like investors who were going to come in and knock the whole property down. So this hospital's like really dilapidated, but it was huge. It was probably on, I don't know, like probably on 5 or 6 acres. And it had multiple buildings and we had to be there, you know, 12-hour shifts. So I would work from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. or 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. And a lot of times you would be working by yourself. So you're in this abandoned hospital and you have to make all these rounds, you know, to different areas of the hospital by yourself late at night. That shit was creepy as fuck. I went down to the morgue because you had to check all of these rooms and like that you had gone down there and made sure nobody was squatting, that nobody had broken in. So I get down to the morgue and like literally I can see the morgue table and the lockers where they put the bodies. And right as I get down there and I'm like walking past the door where the morgue is, I'm getting goosebumps just even talking about this. I'm not joking. Right as I walk past the door, on the back wall where the like freezers for the bodies were, there was a little broom closet. As I walked by, I heard the light come on. It was like one of those lights that you pull down on the chain. I heard that. And so I walked backwards. I had already checked the room. I'd already looked through everything. There was nobody in there. And this thing's like down in the basement. I hear it, and I'm right past the door. Like the second that I get past the door, I hear the light come on. I take a step back and I look into the closet, and the thing is like this, the chain is like that, and the light's on. And I take my flashlight and I look all through that morgue. There was nobody in there. I had already checked it. I had already like cleared it. And right as I walk past the door, I hear the broom closet light get turned on. And I look in there, there's no like automatic switch or anything. Something pulled that chain. That shit was crazy. I have, Carrot says, post my stories. I have. Type in the security guard channel Nazi stripper. That's one of the craziest stories I've ever told somebody. Type in the security guard channel Nazi stripper. The other one was where I got flown out by an ugly chick to Florida. I don't know if I ever told you guys that. I think I did. I think I told you guys the story about the lady in Missouri whose husband called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're on my live streams. I got some crazy stories. Good guy activism. Do you support the Blue Line Gang? I support good policing. I don't support anything that's anti-constitution. I'm a constitutionalist. Now, two of my mentors are cops. Two people that I highly respect and think highly of are police officers. But if you've been following my platform and you follow my channel, I'm not a bootlicker. I believe in justice and I believe in the Constitution. And I have a long track record of calling police officers out on their bullshit. So much so that I get a lot of hate for it. Okay, you said you carry the X2. I was shot with it to carry it in our training by Exxon. We also carry Fox pepper spray. That's non-flammable. Good point. Good point. A lot of people always question me why we carry them. You carry them so that you can be secure in your job. You know? Somebody says that it's because civilians have no obligation to submit to private security employees. It's not about submission. If you commit a crime, you're going to be dealt with. It has nothing to do with submitting. Okay, let me see here. So, God-seeking atheists, unless you're law enforcement, you have no legal right outside of the common everyday civilian. Sure, you can arrest somebody, but that's exactly the same as anyone else. It's called a citizen's arrest. Okay, so if a security guard can make a citizen's arrest and you can make a citizen's arrest, what is the criteria to make a citizen's arrest? It has to be legal. What other authority do you need? You have the Constitution. This is the kind of like splitting hairs that people want to make because you have some sort of issue in your head about private security. I don't know why that is. Private security is literally the only profession where people have some sort of negative feeling about it and it has nothing to do with them. You can be a sex worker. You can like work at McDonald's. Like nobody disrespects anybody the way that people disrespect private security. Okay, what is your point? A private security guard only makes a citizen's arrest. Okay, and I just said that. I just articulated that the only way that a private security guard can make an arrest is that it has to be legally justified. If it's legally justified and I make the arrest, or it's legally justified and you as a private citizen make an arrest, what hairs are we splitting? You're not creating some I gotcha moment by saying that. Like, I don't understand people who take that stance. The amount of people that just post random stuff in my threads about private security, you're not catching us in anything. We realize this. We're trained. We're certified through the state. We do this as a job. No private security guard that I know of is walking around bragging about arresting someone. No one is even talking about arresting someone, right? It's only going to happen if it needs to happen under the circumstances where we're working in that moment. But like this stance that people have about security guards is just weird. It's a weird flex. Like you're not explaining anything to anybody. That's so weird to me. Whoo, people. Clap, clap, Trump 2024. He said, you deal with drug addicts and Democrats. Yeah. Okay, Henry Ross tried to write this again. Why do some states still restrict policy and procedures when people are more aggressive and reckless? For liability's sake. They don't want to take the liability. The reason why companies give you very constrictive post orders is because the goal of private security companies is to make as much money as possible while paying the guards as little as possible, while putting themselves in liabilities issue, while putting themselves in liability as little as possible. Let me say this again. Private security companies entire existence and goal is to make as much money as possible while paying the guards as little as possible, while assuming as little responsibility as possible. So the way that they restrict that liability is to make sure that the security guards, via the post orders, are not able to do anything. That's why it's like that. Okay? I would love to live in Idaho. I've been there. Boise was dope. Brian O'Connor says, I learn every time I watch these. Good. I'm so happy you're here, really. Let me get one more. There's a ton of comments on it. I'm not going to get to all these. Any advice on getting into hospital security? Yeah, just apply. Somebody says, how do you get higher paying security jobs? High paying security jobs are all about networking. It's all about who you know. You have to network. Guys, starting your own YouTube channel is the best thing that you can do, because like I have a running diary of my thoughts on private security. I can direct people to so much that I've done in terms of content that shows the kind of guard that I am, shows the kind of mindset that I have. I've interviewed people, I've networked to create a web of people that I can reach out to that are security guards, that are business owners, that are politicians. I'm tapped into Fox News, Newsmax. I know law enforcement officers, I know senators, right? I'm in a great position to put myself in any possible situation that I want to, because I've made it that way. That's what you guys have to understand. Look, anybody that's not in the private security industry, eat a dick. Don't listen to what I'm about to say. I'm only talking to the security guards. You guys have to create and live your own narrative. The way that people view private security as an industry, the way that they view us as individual guards, whatever they think about what we do, let that all go. You create the narrative. I created the narrative around private security in terms of how I see it. I'm one of the first people on YouTube to create a platform where if you're in private security, you can feel good about it. You can feel good about it. When I'm on Fox News, security guard from Portland, Damian Bunting. When I'm on Newsmax, private security guard. When I'm in that federal lawsuit against the gun ownership here in Oregon, I'm in my private security uniform. Everything that I do, I big up this industry. I've made it cool to be a private security guard. And that's what you have to do. You have to create your own narrative. You have to push your own narrative. Don't let these people dictate who we are, and what we do. We dictate it. We create it. We create our own narrative. And that's why it's so important for you guys to be a part of this platform with me and be on here. You guys need to absorb what I'm giving. Drink the Kool-Aid, right? I make this shit look good. That's what Will Smith said, right? Men in Black. All right, I gotta go. Y'all have a good night. Be